Hi, seventh graders. Today we are going to talk about the percent equation. So the percent equation is just kind of um, a, another approach that you can use to solve all of these different problems that involve percentages of numbers. So it's still going to involve a part, a whole, and a percent. The setup will just look a little bit different. So as we work through some of these problems, we are going to focus on using the percent equation today. Any of these problems could also be set up using the percent proportion, which we have worked on the last couple of days in class. So the percent equation says that the part has to equal a percent times the whole. And so notice that this is kind of found from the percent proportion. And a few things to note is that the percent is going to be actually written as a decimal. So it's going to be as its decimal form when we are using the percent equation, okay? So we're going to look at this problem. This is on page 178 in your workbook. We have a word problem. The first step to a word problem is to read it. So it says, Daniel's buying a new laptop from an online store. His shopping cart from the website is shown. What is the sales tax percent where Daniel lives? So first of all, what you need to know about sales tax is that when if we go shopping, let's say we go to Target, if I find something for $5, when I go to checkout, it's actually going to cost me a little bit more than $5 because there was sales tax added on top of my price. And so the sales tax is depending on where you live, it's a certain percentage of your total that gets added on. So the more you spend, the more sales tax you're going to pay. So if we look over at this problem, we're going to use this information over here to help us set up the percent equation. So first of all, I'm going to see if I know if I'm given a percent. So in this case, I'm not given a percent. In fact, that's what I'm asking. That's what it's asking us to find. So I'm going to use X to represent that for right now. I'm going to be multiplying X times the whole. So when I look, the whole is that original price of the item. So in this case, it's 600. And I know that the part of 600 was 39. So 39 is equal to some percent of 600. And so when I look at this equation, since 600 is being multiplied by something to get 39, I can solve that by dividing by 600. So when we look at this division problem, every fraction, I have written it as a fraction, and every fraction is a division problem. So this is 39 divided by 600. You read it top to bottom. So when you type in 39 divided by 600 into a calculator, that's going to actually give you 0.065. So we've solved for X, okay? X equals 0.065, but we need to remember that that's actually the decimal form of our percent. So to form that back into a percentage, we're going to move our decimal over 2 spots, and so that equals 6.5%, okay? And we would want to make sure that we put our percent sign on there as well. So we're going to keep going. There it says in another state, the sales tax is 7%. So again, that sales tax might change depending on where you are living. So it says, what would be the percent equation that gives the amount of tax for the laptop if bought in this state? So on this one, we don't know that amount of tax. We're trying to solve for that. So that's the part. We do know the percent, okay? Just like when we do the percent proportion, if you are given a percent, that's really easy to plug in. So I'm given that 7%, but we also want to remember that as a decimal, that's going to be 0.07. And then our whole, in this case, is still that $600. The laptop still costs $600. So I need to figure out what the heck is 7% of 600. And one way we can do that is by taking 0.07 times 600. And so when we multiply that, we end up actually getting 42. And again, because this is like real world context, we want to kind of think about what that 42 represents. That means $42. So I'm going to have to pay $42 in taxes on my $600 laptop. So for part B, how much would the tax and total cost of the laptop be in this state? Well, I have to pay $600 for the laptop, and I also have to pay the $42 in taxes. So altogether, I'm going to have to pay $642. All right, this is page 181 in your workbook. So we're going to look at just a few examples. We're going to use the percent equation. So again, you could solve these using the percent proportion. We're just looking at another different strategy that you could use to solve these problems. And depending on the type of problem, it might change from problem to problem, which one you feel more comfortable using. So here, 81 out of 115, we want to be determining the percent. So we know we're going to be solving for the percent on both of these. So I don't know the percent, so something, and then now I need to figure out what's the part and what's the whole. So 81 out of 115, 81 is my part, 150 is the whole there. And so 81 is equal to something times 150. Well, I can figure that out by dividing 81 by 150. Make sure you type in the 81 first. And when you divide 81 by 150, you are going to get 0.54. So when we divide, we get 0.54. Remember, this is the decimal form, okay, not the percent form. So to actually calculate that into a percent, we move our decimal 2 places over to get 54%. On the next one, 54 out of 216, 54 is my part. I'm going to be, so my percent times 216 would equal 54. I can figure that out by dividing by 216. And when we do that, we're going to get 0.25, which remember is the decimal form of our percent. So we turn it into its percentage form by getting 25%. All right, we're going to skip down to number 5 and read number 5. So first step to a word problem is to read it. Working as a sports agent, Imani earns a percent of her client's income or a commission. So some jobs you earn a percentage of what you sell. One of her clients earned an $80,000 signing bonus, which resulted in a $10,400 commission for her. What percent commission did Imani earn on the signing bonus? So the part here is that 10,400. We know that's equal to some percent as a decimal times the whole, which is 80,000. Excuse me, by 80,000. And so when I take 10,400 and I divide by 80,000, I'm going to get 0.13, which is equal to 13%. So there's a 13% commission earned on those sales. Number 6, an online store charges a $2.25 convenience fee on a purchase total of $45 before the fee. What percent of the total is being charged as a fee? So I would always ask yourself, do we know the percent? In this case, we don't. I do know that the $2.25 is a fee, which is a part, okay? And then the total here was 45. So to figure out 45 times what equals $2.25, I can divide 2.25 by 45. And I'm going to get x is going to equal 0.05. Remember, this is the decimal form, so to move my decimal over 2 places to the right to get 5%. All right, we're going to skip ahead to page 182 in your workbook. We have 3 more we're going to do. So these problems were actually given the percent and the whole. And so these are actually really good examples of where I would encourage you to use the percent equation, okay? So our part is equal to the percent times the whole. I have 26% of 140, and I'm trying to figure out that part. So something is equal to, I want to turn that 26% into its decimal form. So 0.26 times 140. And so if I take 0.26 times 140, I'm going to get 36.4. And the next one, 84% of 216. So 84%, I'm given a percent. I'm going to write that in decimal form times the 216 is going to equal my part. And so when I take 0.84 times 216, I'm going to get 181.44. And if we look at number 11, I'm going to erase what I had already. First step to a word problem, read it. Rosa works at a jewelry store. She earns a 3% commission on the selling price of every item she sells. How much did she earn from her $20,000 in sales last week? So first thing, always look for a percent. In this case, we have a percent, 3%, but I want that in its decimal form, times my whole. So my whole here is the $20,000 in sales. And we are going to multiply that, and when we do, we get 600, and that 600 is representing the amount of money, so $600 that Rosa earned. Just as a reminder, you could also use your percent proportion, okay, to solve any of these problems. And in case, just as an extra, okay, this one you could also use some percent shortcuts. So if we find 1% of 20,000, then that would be $200, and so we could use that to figure out 3% by multiplying that by 3, which also gives us $600. All right, have a wonderful day.